Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the select board meeting this evening at 6:30 in the Topsham Municipal Building in the Donald A. Russell Meeting Room. Tonight is August 20th, 2026. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. And for this evening, if we could have Town Manager Mark Waltz call the roll.
David Kenny.
Here.
Ryan Holmes.
Here.
Roland Tufts.
Excused.
And Mike Labby. He's here. And Ann Callahan.
Present.
Fantastic. Moving down the list, let's get into the Town Manager's report.
Just two items. First is a big thank you to our Public Works Department, which did a terrific job pruning the trees and bushes around the municipal complex. Most of them are about 20 years old and they were due for some heavy pruning, and they've limbed up the trees so that you can see things better and trim the shrubs and put new mulch down. And then the other is that coming up is your chance to get rid of all those items at your house that they won't take at the transfer station normally. Next Friday, August 28th, is Household Hazardous Waste Day. Please note it is at Public Works Department at 10 Maintenance Way off Village Drive, not at the transfer station. This is because they needed to have ability to have people drive through under shelter in the event that it rains or something. Because you don't want rain and hazardous chemicals mixing out inside. For the fee of $40, you can bring 5 gallons worth of a liquid or 20 pounds of powder. More information on our website. We will take credit cards that day if people, or debit cards if people want to do that as opposed to checks. No appointments necessary. So it's 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. next Friday at the Public Works Department. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. We do have a short agenda this evening, but the next thing on our list is board and committee reports and updates. Tonight we have one. It is an update on results of potential funding sources for water and sewer improvements from Reagan La Rochelle and La Rochelle Consulting LLC.
And I think Kurt Newfeld's going to do a president of TDI is going to do a short introduction.
Yes, good morning to
yeah.
good evening. Or as they say in the show, good morning, good evening, and good night. Yes, Kurt Neufeld, chair of TDI, and just to put the report that Reagan's going to discuss into some context. Within the last year, we TDI had engaged Rank Pierce to do some infrastructure studies and find out and make recommendations about what it might take for the future of Topsham on both sides of the highway, and they prepared a report that discussed water and sewer options. We presented that to the board, and I think everybody, including us, had a bit of sticker shock about what that would entail, particularly in full build out. And the important thing is to realize that they presented an elephant or a full pizza, and it's like, well, how do you eat all of that? Well, I'll bite at a time. We certainly can't, nobody here knows how to come up with $25 million all at once. So we'll have to break it down into smaller projects. But the water and sewer superintendents here, they've been working with us, and we've been reaching out to them right along. And we're going to continue to work with water and sewer districts to identify projects that are immediate and in the near future that will need funding. So Reagan has been instrumental in helping us understand some of the process to go through these multi-letter organizations that are out there. This CDS, congressionally designated spending, various drinking water revolving funds, and has explained to us and put in writing how the process works. And it's usually, I don't want to take her thunder away, but you go after multiple sources, and there's a long timeline ahead of that. So she's going to give you the details. And that's what the framework of her report is going to do. And hopefully over the next many years, it will serve as a guide for TDI, the town, the utilities to get these things built and make sure that when someone comes to town with a large project, we're able to say, welcome, and not sorry, we've used up our infrastructure capacity. That would be a real shame. So I just Reagan will show.
Thank you, Kurt. Am I close enough to the mic so that I can be heard? Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction, Kurt, and members of the select board and town manager. My name is Reagan LaRochelle with LaRochelle Consulting. And as Kurt mentioned, I was hired by TDI to explore funding sources that were suggested as part of the Right Peer study that were infrastructure friendly funding sources that are out in different areas of the funding world. So we'll get started here. So with just looking at the landscape of funding options for infrastructure projects, they kind of fell into four categories, and those were grants, which everyone loves to hear about, loans that have a forgiveness component to them, and then just more traditional loans, and then a local funding category under which we put tax increment financing, which the town is familiar with and has several tax increment financing or TIF districts. Fairly quickly in doing this research, it was determined that a couple of the grants Topsham wasn't well suited for because of the population and some workforce or employment criteria. Topsham didn't fit the DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development block grant funding, which is usually about $1 million funding. It's on a 2-year cycle. It's incredibly competitive, and there's very specific criteria for that infrastructure funding. And so it was determined that given resources in Topsham, that might not be the best use of time and energy to go after that type of funding source. The same thing with the Economic Development Administration grant, similar criteria that had kind of area median income and unemployment statistics that Topsham didn't quite fit into. So those were eliminated fairly quickly on the grant side, which left us with congressionally directed spending and grants for loans with forgiveness, the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund, which is for essentially for sewer projects, and then the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, which is for drinking water. Then more generalized loans from Maine Municipal Bond Bank and the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, WIFIA. And Kurt warned you about the acronyms. There's lots of acronyms in the world of funding sources. And then finally, the tax increment financing. So just to start going through some of these options, the first one, congressionally directed spending, or if your community project funding for the House of Representatives Congress people are two forms of earmarks that many communities have taken advantage of in Maine. The average award size for congressionally directed spending is about $2 million, and the community project funding is about $1.5 million. There are projects that they fund that are under $1 million, and fewer projects that are over $5 million for a particular project, but it's not unheard of for that funding to come about that way. Some of the, if the town were interested in pursuing that funding, some of the criteria include basically having your project shovel ready. So whichever projects you were looking to pursue this funding for, having the final architectural plans ready, knowing what the costs were going to be, and having this grant requires other committed funding sources. As I mentioned, Topsham has tax increment financing funds that in those TIF districts have been dedicated towards infrastructure projects that you could use as part of match or other grants. Or other loans that we'll talk about in a little bit, but that is one of the requirements, is to have other committed funding sources. The timeline to submit is, it's a very fast turnaround every year. So if this were something that the town wanted to do, they would want to reach out to the, all of the congressional offices and get on the list that, is emailed once the application for that year comes out. And so everything is kind of ready to go because it is a very quick turnaround. For the loan options, I will talk about the clean water and drinking water state revolving loan funds together, even though I noted that one is for wastewater and one is for drinking water. Clean water goes through the Department of Environmental Protection. Drinking water goes through Department of Health and Human Services. What's common about these is that there is an application process. So you would identify your infrastructure project and then apply to be on a list, which is called an intended use plan. Your project gets scored and then ranked among all the other projects in the state for that particular funding cycle. If you do get on that list, then the department starts at the top with the funding that they have and goes down the list. And when they run out of funding, that's all the projects that they fund for that year. So it's not a guarantee necessarily, even if you get on the intended use plan, that your project would be funded for that year. The advantages of the Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund is that there is a component of loan forgiveness. Again, that would be something to explore. Some communities get very high percentage of loan forgiveness. For Topsham, it probably would not be above 50% and might be closer to 10 to 30%, depending on the project. So again, that would be something to connect with the state agency and start vetting that project early to make sure there were realistic expectations about what type of forgiveness the town might expect. So those are those ones with a forgivable component. The next one is the Maine Municipal Bond Bank General Resolution loans, and the good news for these is that they don't need to be an approved project. You can just apply for the bond to pay for the infrastructure project. It can be used as standalone debt. You don't need other funding sources to stack onto this onto the general resolution bond. So there is a aspect of it that is faster and easier than having to go through a longer process. But again, there's not that forgiveness component, and it's usually for smaller standalone projects. The last loan option, again, is one that is not a forgivable loan. It's the water.
Withia, way more fun to say anyway.
I was gonna say, I'm falling victim to the acronyms, Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. And that runs through, that's a federal loan that runs through the Environmental Protection Agency. The difference between the general resolution bond from the Maine Municipal Bond Bank and Withia is that you can have much larger projects. So you could put together multiple infrastructure projects and receive a larger bond for doing those multiple projects. The drawback to that, among some other components, is that it's a federal loan, and so there's a lot of record keeping, reporting, and staff time associated with that type of funding source. Okay. And then we'll go on to the local funding, which is tax increment financing. You all may be very aware that this is a local tool that has a lot of flexibility in terms of how funds are spent for infrastructure projects. Your TIF, many of your TIF districts are set up already to fund infrastructure that is inside of your TIF district or leading to or made necessary by your TIF district. And what we talked about a little bit at TDI is that there's an advantage to using tax increment financing funds for infrastructure. Simply because of the way TIF revenue is collected and received, in that the new value that you are collecting the TIF revenue from, or the TIF taxes, don't get put into your municipal funding formula. So you get to keep the whole tax dollar in your community as opposed to losing it to tax shifts because your municipal valuation increase. So it's kind of like getting a discount on what you spend your TIF revenues on. However, it's not always possible to spend TIF revenue. Obviously, TIF revenues are not eligible for all of the items that you spend your general fund revenue on, but they are eligible for infrastructure. So if there is the opportunity to spend TIF revenues on infrastructure, and even if it's as a match or as an additional funding source for one of these other funding opportunities, that would be highly encouraged for the town. This next slide is just showing the 3 wastewater projects that were part of the Right Care study. And then the far column shows the funding possibilities that we just talked about, that might match up with that particular project. The same with the water projects, there were 3, and then the funding possibilities that we've just gone over, that would coincide with those water projects. When I presented to TDI, again, as Kurt talked about, there's several projects here that would cost a lot of money, so where do you begin? And one suggestion from that group, for point of discussion, would be the annex pump station. Might be something that would be well received by the community. It costs about a little over $1 million for that project. And so if the town were interested in vetting that and making it more shovel ready, there would just be a few aspects of that would need to be improved upon, including having conversation with the sewer district and figuring out that partnership. Again, furthering the plans for the annex pump station and making it shovel ready so that when funds were received, they would be ready to go. And so there was conversations around whether that would, the next step to get to shovel ready might include TIF revenues. Is it a grant from TDI? What would it need to be to get to that next level? So that was a lot of information very quickly. So this is the presentation. There is a document that, Mark, I don't know if they have this, but okay, so this is the documentation of all of the different projects and more details essentially. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any immediate questions. Thank you for that presentation. That was very helpful. Do you guys have any further questions?
I don't, I'm just reviewing the document you just showed us. Yeah.
It is quite a bit of information and.
That's part of the hard part.
Details,
We to digest it first, we'll probably have questions. But it's great to hear the information presented to us. It's great to see what the options are. It's great to see the work that you guys have put into this. So this is definitely something to toil over for a little while.
I was curious though, on the first, we're talking about the grants, and you said that Topsham wouldn't be a good fit for some of the things, and some things that we didn't have that were, I mean, without taking forever, what such as
So.
I'm just curious what we're missing that.
Yes, so some of it is just the demographics of Topsom. But I mean, looking at them individually, like the EDA grant. There was the criteria included, a certain threshold, over a period of 24 months of a certain unemployment rate, which, Topsom would not be near qualifying for, or an income threshold or of less than or equal to 80% of US per capita income. When you look at that, Topsom is just kind of on the line, but it's not a definitive, and whether that changes year over year, for example, it just wasn't a slam dunk in terms of, you should be spending your time pursuing this grant, which I'm sure is, and again, when we're talking about grants, of course, they're very competitive because everyone wants money that you don't have to pay back. For the DECD Community Development Block Grant, I spoke to the administrator of that program, and over the past several years and before this has become a very competitive program for communities that are not positioned the way Topsom is positioned, kind of more rural, lower income communities. And there's also, just for the funding, let me see. It would depend on the type of project that the infrastructure we're going towards. So it would need to be low to moderate income housing that was going to be built. And, if it came up that a low to moderate income housing development were to come on the radar that lined up with this infrastructure, that could be something to pursue, but again, just with Topsom's limited resources and wanting to be focused on this particular infrastructure that was in Wright Pierce, that didn't seem like a great fit either.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
And to remind you that, a couple months ago, when Steve Pelletier was the chair of TDI, he came before and asking for permission to put out an RFP for the engineering work to figure out what would need to be done in Can-Am Drive, so that it could have the high pressure water line, the low pressure water line that would service Parliament and Congress, the high pressure sewer line that could push the sewage towards Headford Road, which is the place the sewer department has capacity for more, and build the road up to town specs, so that it'd be another piece of the public road we're trying to accomplish, in addition to 196, to get from the schools other ways out towards the other side of town. That will be released probably in the next week or so. And then when the results come back in, TDI will analyze them and bring them back to you folks. And then we start working to convene a meeting. There's probably about 6 people that all would have a benefit from this. Certainly, the school district would. Right now, they can't even water the fields at the junior high because there isn't enough water pressure there. The developer that wants to do Liberty Circle needs water in there to do that development. The Parliament and Congress Circle owner, it's right now owns the road and would rather not. He'd also like to get better water up to those places. The MRRA would like to get out of the water business, as far as being a water utility in that section. Town would obviously like to see some more economic development, as well as we mentioned the road benefits. So seems like, as we hear about picking one piece at a time, this might be a good one to start at, because there's a lot of people that have a benefit, be able to maybe be willing to take on a piece of it, so that one organization doesn't have a big chunk. But so that's kind of, I think, the next step from our part is TDI is going to put that out, and then I'll come back before you, and this may be ways to help try to fund some of it once we have better plans.
Great.
Currently.
Great, go ahead.
Mark mentioned, some of the water issues over there in the school area. I just wanted to say, in context, also, I often get up here and talk about the future and future projects, but there are things going on right now. that this could be important for. I know with Chris Leclerc has been coming to TDI, and we've learned that the pump station down by Pinewood Drive is, older than I am, which is saying something. And probably will need some significant work going into it. And these funding sources may be important for that. And obviously, we can't keep pumping our stuff across the river to Brunswick. We all have a problem. Dan Catlin's doing his new project down over there and doesn't have great water pressure. So even our existing communities will need infrastructure attention. And if the town, that's if, but when we get good at this, would also probably to be used for some roadway and other infrastructure type uses. So I know this is all kind of very like conceptual at this point, and think, oh, here's some sources. But I really hope that with this good work that Reagan has done, this is going to help us, move into the rest of the century. So thanks for your attention on that.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move down the agenda. Thank you, guys. Let's move down to the agenda. Next thing we have is public comment. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? I'll jump at once. Okay, seeing none. Correspondence. Did anybody have any correspondence they wish to discuss? Okay. Any adjustments to the agenda? None? Moving down the list to consent calendar, we need approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting on August 6th, 2026.
I make a motion to accept the select board minutes from August 6, 2026 as presented.
Great, we have a motion from Ann. Do we have a second? And a second from Dave. Do we have any further discussion on that? Saying none. All in favor? And that's a unanimous yes. All right, the next few items on our list, we don't have anything for, so I'll just say them, we'll blast through them. No public hearings, no unfinished business, no old business. And now we move on to new business for our final two agenda items. Number 26-90, consideration and any appropriate action to approve the police department to apply for and accept a non-matching grant from the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance. Take it away, Mark.
Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. So every year, Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance awards funding to law enforcement agencies based on our annual funding stats. So this year, the award would be $2,442. It's a non-matching grant. There's no funding requirements on the town side. We would like to use this money to fund our law enforcement against drugs and violence program that we run in the Mount Airy Middle School. The funding would assist us in buying student workbooks, graduation certificates, and giveaways for the graduation. The 15-week program, just the student workbooks alone are $5 each, so we spend over $1,000 on those annually. So that's what we'd like to use the money for. Again, it's non-matching, and all we need is your permission to apply for it.
Before we do that, thank you so much for applying for grants. Grants are great, as stated before. They're always fantastic and it helps build the community and the program that you've done such a great job with. I would entertain a motion for this.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the police department to apply for and accept a non-matching grant in the amount of $2,442 from the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Great, thank you. We have a motion from Ann Callahan. Do we have a second? And a second from Mike Labby. Do we have any further discussion on this topic? Other than how awesome it is. Okay, no further discussion. We'll take a vote. All in favor? And that is a unanimous yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, up to our final agenda item, 26-91, consideration and any appropriate action on the determination of the amount of surplus to be used towards the FY27 budget.
You have a memo for me, and attached to the back of it was a page that may look familiar, what you saw in your budget book, that showed that this year, as it ended up, the bill that the county is giving us is 10.5% more than last year. The bill from the school district is 9.89% more than last year. Our municipal expenditures, including the extra 250,000 we put into paving, make the total municipal part 5.12% more than last year. So that as things, and we had a little less revenue sharing than the state gave us last year. So as everything kind of worked out, right now we're looking at needing to raise 10% more than last year as far as our taxes or to cover our expenditures. You have a policy, which you could certainly change if you wanted, but this policies that's been in existence, at least since I've been here, the select board has had, is that you want to have in case of something goes wrong or rainy day or COVID or whatever, at least 16.7% of last year's expenditures sitting aside as unallocated surplus, but no more than 18% of last year's expenditures. That means that the I'll come back to something else. You'll also note in fiscal year 24, we used $353,000 of surplus to offset the budget. Fiscal year 25, we used $2.3 million to offset the budget. That year was, it may look like, were we fiscally irresponsible, but all of a sudden we jumped up by $2 million the amount of surplus used. That was because there was some money that had flown from or come to us from the federal government as a result of COVID. So we intentionally put in some extra capital projects. So it wasn't basically put in to try to feed the ongoing budget. It was to do some of those extra capital projects. Last year, there was 1.7 million used to offset the tax rate. This year, going into it, we knew we weren't going to have 1.7 million sitting around to offset it. And we knew that if we could get ourselves into trouble, as some other towns have done, if we rely too much on surplus, because if you can't get at least that amount the following year, you're gonna have to raise your taxes just to pay your current expenditures. So we thought we would responsibly have a little over 1 million left in surplus at the end of the year, just judging where expenses were going. So in your draft budget last spring, we said we would use 1,069,000 towards surplus. Tonight, we're proposing, as much because it's a round number as anything else, but to use 1.1 million of the surplus to offset the tax commitment. If we do that, we'll still have hopefully about 232,000 beyond the maximum number that you could have as unallocated surplus. It may not be that much in the end because Finance Director Ricker says that we're still waiting for final receipts to get calculated this month, and it could be as much as 100,000 less than that number. But if it goes well and we have 232,000, I propose that rather than using that to offset taxes, because it really isn't going to move the number much, we set it aside for the Tedford Road improvements, as we did a couple years ago when we put about 300,000 aside. You may recall that Wright Pierce gave us a very back of the envelope estimate of somewhere between 2 and 3 million to do the Tedford Road sidewalk project. We've been working with more engineering to get better numbers. And in fact, in the next 2 months, we should have very good numbers because the final phase of design is finishing. It'll get back to us with one more public meeting, and then they'll be ready to give us the cost estimates and things. We also have some TIF reserves that could be used towards that project. And we've got unspent money from prior years that isn't necessarily designated for Tedford Road, but could be because in the town meeting warrant it would allow use. All that's to say, we probably have about 1 million that we could scrape together right now to put towards Tedford Road sidewalks. This would give us another 232,000 for it. And then with the intent being that, and we'll know better once we get the numbers in on the final thing, but we could actually pull off the project next summer without having to do a bond. So that's our recommended use, but ultimately it's your decision. If you want to, you could use as much as, if we drop down, didn't put any money aside for Tedford Road and you drop down the minimum number, it'd be 1.734, 217,000 that you could put. Only caution in that number is, again, Finance Director said, Finance Director Ricker said we may be short 100,000 of that, so you might not want to go that high, you might want to use 1.6 or something. And that's, and the other thing you could do is you could just say, we don't want to put any money aside for Tedford Road, but we want to stay at the maximum number, and you could use 1.332 million. Or even anything in between that, but again, my recommendation is that we do 1.1 million to offset the taxes and put anything above the 18% when the final numbers come in into the Tedford Road construction surplus.
Where are we at with surplus right now?
Kathy, you want to address that one?
I'm just curious about the percentage where we're at. We have that 16.7% to 18% that we want to keep as
Bottom.
reserve, and where are we at with that?
At the,
So if you took the two, added them to get, say you took the 18% number
Yeah,
and added the 1,332,421,
yep,
that's what we have for unallocated
6.8.
surplus right now.
okay. Oh, so that's what's above and beyond the 18%.
yes,
Right, the
Got it, okay.
1,332 is above and beyond 18.
Got it. So,
so what we would do is take the 1.1 million out, if that's what you choose, and then the rest go to Tedford Road.
got it.
And but the goal was to really get it down to 18% at the end.
Yeah.
And not be beyond, we've been beyond our policy since I've been here.
So we gotta get,
So is I'm sorry,
go
is the
ahead.
Tedford Road number 232,421?
Yes.
Or probably.
Or it's in the ballpark.
Our preference would be, if you were to make your motion, not to put an exact number on the Tedford Road reserves,
Yeah.
because it may not be that much. It would be to say you want to use a certain amount towards unallocated surplus and then put anything above the 18%.
Tax
Yeah.
commitment.
There's actually,
Yep, I know.
One day.
I know.
So it would more or less look like we would say we want to put $1.1 million towards offsetting next year's budget, and the remainder of the overage to go towards Tedford Road.
remember
No,
what's over
tax.
18%.
So whatever's over 18%, yeah. Sorry, then yes, whatever's remaining beyond that 1.1.
The 1.1 would go to the tax
Yep.
commitment, so it would go toward taxpayers, right?
The 1.1 would go to reduce what taxpayers have to pay,
Right.
and then anything beyond the select board policy of the 18% would go towards the Tedford Road.
So the first question that I would have for you guys is, what percentage do we want to have that account at? Do we want to keep that at 18%? Or do we want to dip below that 18%? And I'm not saying that as I'm suggesting we do that, I just want to feel out what everybody's thought is. 18% is roughly $5.5 million. That gives us what, 3 months if something went wrong? Is that right? About, maybe if that. I've always been in favor of keeping it up at the max for the rainy day.
Well, the thing that's good about leaving it at the max is that we won't have to take out any loans to finish the Tedford Road project.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Well, if we lowered it, we could put more into the,
Oh, less than the 1.1 million?
if
You know,
we
you could go from 18
to like 17%, which would mean that we would end up putting more into Tedford.
Correct.
Is 18% typical for communities? Where does that number come from? Do we have any, where that?
Good question.
Go to the microphone for the people on.
Oh, sorry.
People listening.
Usually the way you calculate. If you have nothing, you wanna have enough cash until your tax receipts come in, so in our case, it would be from July 1 to October 15th, so 3.5 months.
So the 60% would only cover us for like 2 months, is that correct?
What is 1 month? It's 8. 2 months would be 16,
So,
yeah.
so the 18% just gives us like 2.5 months, right? Something
Yeah.
like that.
It's emergencies.
We do have enough, I mean, we've never even come close to having to borrow.
The downside too is if we do go below that 17, in order for us to get back up to the 18 in following years, we're gonna have to put more money back into that, which would.
Going backwards,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
No, I think if we've made it to that point, we should stay at that point. I think it's a safer thing for the community, or just the case of emergencies. That's my 2 cents.
I do support giving money back to the taxpayers. And they also have to realize if they get a discount this year, it's gonna show a higher tax rate next year possibly. So they have to
You're just
understand,
deferring the.
we're just deferring it, but I think it's good to give it to them while we can. I will do it.
They voted in favor of the 10%. If this offsets it a little bit, it'll go down. And then next year, the numbers will be based on what they approved from the year before, so it would. I mean, every year there seems to be a little bit of leftovers. It's not necessarily for spending, but there's things that happen within the town, like not filling positions that we don't fund because no one's applied or we haven't hired. And other reasons as well, so.
It's not left over because we budgeted too much, it's left over because department heads have done their job and,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
they have,
it's not gone overboard.
and I also agree, I'm in favor of. It's tax raised money, this money has been raised from the taxpayers this entire time. It belongs to the taxpayers, so it's important to give it back to them, at the same time. Protect the idea of not having to increase next year or future years' budgets with capital projects, so this is a win-win, kill two birds with one stone. Is the way that I see it.
Are we all leaning toward the 1.1 million?
Yes.
I'm in favor of the recommendation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be ready for a motion if anybody would like to give one.
I'd like to make a motion to utilize 1.1 million of unallocated surplus to offset the net tax commitment. And that any additional unallocated surplus over the 18% maximum be transferred to the reserve account to fund the sidewalks and reconstruction of Tedford Road.
Okay, we have a motion from Ann Callahan. Do we have a second? I see a second from Mike Labby. Now that that's out of the way, do we have any further discussion that we would like to bring forward on this motion? I pause because I know sometimes we go really quick and this is our time to have conversation, so.
It's common sense.
Yep. Okay, so then seeing no further, let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that is a unanimous yes. Thank you, guys.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Woo, you are ahead of me. Okay, we have a motion from Anna Callahan to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Dave Kenny. All in favor? And it is unanimous. We are out. Thank you guys for attending.